Good morning. Today we are going to have a review of the rock cycle. Remember that the rock cycle describes how the three types of rock found on Earth are formed and what happens to them over time. The three types of rock found on Earth are sedimentary rock, metamorphic rock, and igneous rock. The rock cycle describes what can happen to the three types of rock. Not every rock goes through every step of the rock cycle, and it can take millions of years for a rock to move from one step to the next. The first step we're going to talk about today is igneous rock forming from magma. When magma cools, it forms igneous rock. Igneous rock is the only rock formed from cooling magma. If the igneous rock melts, it becomes magma once again. Magma is molten or liquid rock that is found underground. When magma cools underground, it forms intrusive igneous rock. The magma cools very slowly underground because it's so hot. This allows time for very large crystals to form. Lava is molten or liquid rock found above ground, such as the lava found during a volcanic eruption. When lava cools, it forms extrusive igneous rock. Extrusive igneous rock cools very quickly above ground because it's so much colder above ground than underground. This only allows time for small crystals to form, and sometimes it cools so quickly that no crystals form at all. The next step we're going to discuss today is igneous rock becoming sediments. Sediments are small pieces of rock and other material. Sand is an example of a sediment. Igneous rock forms sediments through weathering and erosion. Weathering is wearing down rock into smaller pieces or sediments. Erosion is moving sediments from one place to another. You will often hear people use erosion to describe both weathering and erosion, but scientifically this is inaccurate. Weathering and erosion are done by four main things: water, ice, wind, and living things. Water is probably the most powerful agent of weathering and erosion. Water can fall into the cracks of rocks. It will then freeze and become ice. Since ice expands as it freezes, this makes the cracks even bigger and eventually tears rocks apart. Water then erodes these pieces in the form of rivers and streams carrying tiny rocks from one place to another. Wind is another powerful agent of weathering and erosion. Living things can also weather and erode rocks. Plant roots work their way into the cracks of rocks and grow, splitting the rocks apart. Animals scratch at rocks looking for things like food, which weathers them. They also move sediments and rocks from one place to another, causing erosion. The next step we're going to talk about today is igneous rock becoming metamorphic rock. Igneous rock becomes metamorphic rock through heat and pressure. The heat that changes igneous rock into metamorphic rock comes from magma, which can be within the crust, or magma within the mantle. A small pocket of magma can create a small pocket of metamorphic rock. Large areas of magma or the heat from the magma within the mantle can create large metamorphic rocks. The pressure comes from the weight of rocks above or tectonic activity. You will find many metamorphic rocks at plate boundaries. Metamorphic rock can also become magma. This happens when the metamorphic rock melts. We will next discuss how metamorphic rock can be transformed into sediments. Just like igneous rock is transformed into sediments by weathering and erosion, metamorphic rock is transformed into sediments by weathering and erosion. Remember that weathering is wearing down rocks into smaller pieces called sediments. Erosion is moving these sediments from one place to another. Weathering and erosion are done by water, ice, wind, and living things. The next step we will discuss is sedimentary rock turning into sediments and sediments turning into sedimentary rock. Just like igneous rock and metamorphic rock, sedimentary rock is turned into sediments by weathering and erosion. Sediments can then turn into sedimentary rock by compaction and cementation. Compaction is sediments being pushed together by the weight of the sediments above them, forming sedimentary rock. Think of compaction as squishing a sandwich. The layers of the sandwich are pushed together just as the layers of sediments are pushed together to form sedimentary rock. Cementation happens when water is forced out of the forming sedimentary rock, leaving behind minerals that act like glue to hold the sediments that make up the rock together. This is probably the hardest part of the rock cycle to understand, so take a minute and make sure that you know the definitions of compaction and cementation. Sedimentary rock can also be turned into metamorphic rock. Just as igneous rock is turned into metamorphic rock through heat and pressure, sedimentary rock is turned into metamorphic rock by heat and pressure. The heat comes from magma, either within the crust or within the mantle, and the pressure comes from the weight of rocks above it or tectonic activity. Finally, sedimentary rock can be turned into magma. This happens when the sedimentary rock melts. You may have noticed that every type of rock can melt and become magma. The rock cycle diagram shows how each type of rock is formed. Igneous rock is formed when magma cools. Metamorphic rock is formed through heat and pressure applied to igneous and sedimentary rocks. Sedimentary rock forms when sediments undergo compaction and cementation. Now we are going to draw the complete rock cycle. Let's start with magma. When magma cools, it forms igneous rock. Weathering and erosion then convert igneous rock into sediments. Sediments undergo compaction and cementation to form sedimentary rock. Sedimentary rock can be weathered and eroded as well to form more sediments. Sedimentary rock can also be exposed to heat and pressure and form metamorphic rock. Metamorphic rock can undergo weathering and erosion and form sediments as well. Metamorphic rock can also melt and form magma. Similarly, sedimentary rock can melt and form magma. Igneous rock can also melt and form magma, or undergo heat and pressure and become a metamorphic rock. So we have completed our rock cycle diagram. You can see that using the information in the rock cycle diagram, you can explain how each type of rock is formed and what happens to these rocks over time. I hope this review helps you on your next exam or paper about the rock cycle.